Good afternoon and welcome to the Modern Marketing Confluence, a DAN and MMA initiative, a platform to discuss and debate growth hacks and bring to you curated and rich insights from industry experts, marketers, and partners. I'm Monica Khurana, MMA India Country Head, and your host for today. We bring to you part 3 of the Thursday series of Modern Marketing Confluence. This series couldn't be better timed given the new normal we are all living in. It is the era of modern marketing. The marketer is upskilling to adopt modern marketing techniques as organizations dabble with first-party data strategy, D2C, and cloud for marketing as must-haves for marketing plans to succeed. It is imperative for a marketer to be equipped as he leads digital transformation from the front and manages customer retention and acquisitions. Hence, it's important MMA enables the journey for the same. So before we begin the session today, let me share with you various initiatives MMA is taking to enable the modern marketing journey. We have put together an advisory council and an in-house MarTech expert to educate marketers, build capabilities, and provide best practices to better understand modern marketing growth hacks. We have recently released an industry survey to share a view of the current gaps and opportunities in MarTech. We would urge you to participate in the survey and share your views and inputs for us to enable to represent relevant insights in the industry. So let's take a glimpse of what the series has been like and what's coming your way. Can we have the video, please? So the topic for today, as you all know, is cloud for marketing. It is being streamed live on MMA social media handles on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Do spread the word for more and more people to benefit from it. Consumers today expect consistent and personalized experiences, regardless of the device or channel. They always looking for a frictionless consumer experience. Marketing technology plays a key role in enabling the same and in overall digital transformation. The most successful brands see integrated data and technology as the key for it. In this session, we will attempt to address how technology is enabling customer lifetime value, new customer acquisition, personalization, CRM, and finally, ROI in MarTech investments. So before we start, some quick housekeeping rules. Please feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. Do share your name, designation, and your company name, as well as the speaker you'd like to address it to, so that we can contextualize the answer for you. With that, let me introduce you to our keynote speaker for the day, Vivek Bhargava, CEO, DAN Performance Group. I've had the privilege of knowing Vivek for close to 2 decades as an industry colleague who I've always looked up to. Vivek has 23 plus years of experience in digital and has seen it through all its phases, be it the bust, be it the boom, and now the boom again. He wears multiple hats, right from being a mentor to an investor to an entrepreneur, all rolled in one. Currently, he's working on a book called Happiness is a Muscle, for which he's also recording videos with several business leaders about their mental framework of happiness. This sounds utopic. having a muscle to be happy. Wow. Vivek, I'm going to take a detour and quickly ask you, what is this book about? I mean, what do you mean by happiness can be a muscle? Tell us a little about it before I move forward.
Okay. So basically, in a nutshell, everybody has a baseline. So I'm an optimistic guy, I'll be 80 or 100. Somebody else could be pessimistic, 60 or 100. And let's say COVID hits us, or I win a lottery for $1 billion, this 80 becomes 90. But after 6 to 8 months, 1 year, you come back to 80. So I think what people need to do is they need to work on this as a muscle. And the goal is to increase at 80 to 81 to 82. So that after a hardship event or a fortunate event, you come back to 81 instead of coming back to 80. And I've been working on it for 7 years now. I believe that it happens through a set of actions and beliefs. Actions are things like exercise, sleep, meditation. Belief are things like I have a belief I trust everyone. I have a belief that you should learn as many things as possible. So these are beliefs that allow you to sort of increase that baseline by one at a time. So this in a nutshell is my entire book.
That sounds fantastic. I think it's time for us to practice some of these. So Vivek, as you're going to talk about cloud for marketing and the role it plays in acquiring new customers, retargeting them, and building lifetime customer value, I'm going to hand it over to you from here on to take us through your session.
Okay, have you done the poll already?
No. Would you like me to start with
I
one
think
of them?
start with the poll.
Sure.
We can do all the 3 polls. I think during the presentation, I'll cover it.
Fantastic. Okay. So we'll launch the first poll wherein you will see it on your screen. The question being, what percentage of profits do 20% of customers deliver for most companies? Is it 200, 100, 80 or 50? So we'll give it a couple of more seconds. We have some quick responses coming in with fair bit of skew to a specific option. And I'm going to quickly shut it and share it with you, Vivek, for you to see the results. So the results are on your screen. Would you like to make a comment on what you see up there?
So let's say I would put it this way, using the Pareto rule, 80% of the people have got it wrong. So 80% of the people say it's 20% of the customers give you 80% of the profits. I'll cover it, but they've got it wrong. So that's my comment, and then my presentation, I clarify it.
Fantastic.
So,
cool.
Okay, I think maybe I can clarify it now. So, there is a book called Customer Centricity by a guy called Peter Fader. Basically, 20% of the customers give you 200% of your profits, because there is a significant portion of your customers for most companies that take your profits away. So actually 20% of the customers give you 200% of the profits. The Pareto rule doesn't apply for profits. It applies for revenues, but doesn't apply for profits.
Wow, that's well put. I couldn't agree more. So let me do the next one quickly for you. So it's up on the screen for the audience. So what percentage of industry profits used to be controlled by Microsoft and Intel in the 80s? Choices being 40, 50, 80, 110. So again, we do see some clear patterns. We'll know whether they're right or wrong. And I'll just give it a couple of more seconds. And for the audience to know, we're going to launch one last poll, because we think these polls are very important to set context to the session. And hence we want to start with it. And now I'm going to share the results for Vivek to comment on. Vivek, what's your take?
So again, most of the people have said 80% of the profits. I think people are beginning to realize this is a trick question. It was actually 110% of the profits. That means Microsoft and Intel, they used to call it Wintel. Wintel used to own 110% of the profits. All the others in the industry used to actually lose money. So imagine,
wow.
Right? This is how skewed things can be. And I think a lot of people don't put enough effort to understand the customers and how much percent of the profit is controlled by a few set of customers. So imagine cloud actually allows you to do that. But a lot of people have the business objective itself wrong about acquiring more customers. But actually the objective should be acquiring more profitable customers. Last poll.
I already think you're making your point loud and clear. And, and here we go with the last one. So this should be doable. Approximate number of MarTech and AdTech companies in the world. Pick a number, 500, 1,000, 4,000, or 7,000? Hopefully, Vivek, the audience will please you with the right answer here. And I think we're getting there. So I'm going to share the results back. Here you go.
Okay, so 51% of people have got it right. It's 7,000. But I think people figured out that Vivek ke poll mein the highest answer has to be given. Whatever the highest answer is.
That's a trend. Interesting. That's a data person talking. And over to you to kickstart the session from here on.
Thank you, Monica. So I'm going to try to share my presentation. Okay, and we can see my presentation.
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I think I'm going to start off with a mistake that I made 3-4 months ago. I wish I had sort of talked to my colleagues and friends that every time somebody mentions to me a word called new normal, unprecedented, now more than ever, and give me just $1 when they mentioned it, I would have been a millionaire by now, right? Or maybe probably billionaire, because I think millionaire is too low these days. So the fact of the matter is that I think we're living in this land of opportunity because of whatever words we have been using, right? I think Churchill said, never let a crisis go waste. Unfortunately, fortunately, this is going to be a huge opportunity for the digital industry, for the cloud industry, and I think for the country also. Let me elaborate more on the country bit to the next slide. Now, actually, Mr. Mohandas Pai talks about this thing, and the first time when I read this statistic, I was just completely shocked, right? Because it was almost like feeling that, all these years we've not actually evolved from the British Raj. In those days, we used to export cotton and import textiles. Now exporting services and importing product. So the fact of the matter is that obviously we're all proud of what Infosys and some of these companies have achieved, but I think they were built in the last 30 years in the place of scarcity. Now we are building companies in the place of abundance. So I feel that the future is going to be cloud. And I think India is extremely well suited for cloud because our capabilities in Jugaad, our capabilities of incremental improvements, I think puts us in a really, really good space. So let me just give you one other example. Infosys, I gave this presentation about a year ago. Infosys market cap was 42 billion. So it's actually grown from 42 to 52. But Microsoft market cap at that point in time was 1,200 billion. So for 10 billion that Infosys grew, Microsoft grew 500 or 400 billion dollars, right? I think this is where the opportunity is. The next 30 years for India, if the last 30 years have been services, the next 30 years for India is definitely going to be the cloud. And I'm really, really excited of the opportunities that the cloud SaaS is creating for India as a country. I think, this is one thing which I've always used in my investment thesis. I've invested in about 15 odd companies, and all these companies are connected in some way. It's like a constellation. So, Rajesh Jain from Netco talks about this thing called commerce constellation. I've heard a lot of people who have built these constellations where they create a multiplier. I think that's what the SaaS industry is going to be. First thing it does is it actually creates this collaboration opportunities between the different companies in India, because you can connect SaaS much easier than any other kind of software. Secondly, what it does is you take a problem like connecting, advertising to CRM or CRM to advertising or commerce. It requires a lot of things to be solved. Now, one company is going to find it extremely difficult to solve it. So just imagine, right? Hundreds of companies come together to solve a problem, which is too big for one company to solve. Imagine the opportunities, right? It's $2.5 billion market, but it's going to become 15 billion. And SaaS companies can be valued at 20 times their revenues, right? So you're talking about 300, 400 billion kind of valuation companies being created. So it could be hundreds of companies which will be unicorns in India in the next 5 years. And I think SaaS and cloud is creating this opportunity for India. Hopefully we can leverage it and actually benefit from it. Now, I think this is a big thing for networks like Dentsu as well as for larger companies, right? So in a way, the smaller companies will have to sort of innovate faster and in different ways, because earlier, like I was acquired in 2012 as a company, because the fact of the matter is that building that from scratch in India for Dentsu would have been more difficult. But now what's happening is we acquire a technology company in some other part of the world. We can take the technology and bring it to India very, very quickly. So the fact of the matter is that we'll have to now innovate differently because a larger global companies, which is a benefit to companies like Dentsu, will become a disadvantage of smaller agencies in India because those technologies will can easily come here. But I think we are investing as Dentsu, investing in technology companies. We have a fund for companies who are building layers of technology on top of platforms like Instagram or YouTube or Google Analytics, etc. So fact of the matter is that I think the opportunity is huge. I think if anybody wants to build a tech SaaS company in the marketing advertising space, there are hundreds of us who are willing to invest in those companies. So I think the next 3 to 5 years, out of those 7,000 companies that we talked about, hopefully a few thousand of them will be from India, and they'll all be, some of them will go to billion-dollar kind of ranges as companies. As Dentsu, we obviously use cloud across 145 countries. 4 months I've been at home. I've never had the need to go to the office because everything that I would do in the office, I can do from home. And I can do it perfectly, even better. I think I've been more productive. So I think cloud is allowing this ability for us to work for companies all over the world. I think that's another opportunity that cloud is going to create for us. And I think we should leverage it. One thing that I think all of us will have to look at is, right, that how do we create these internal disruptions? Because, so I did a Harvard Disruptive Strategy course by Professor Clay Christensen. He passed away actually in Jan 2020. So I did a course after that. It was a video recorded course of Harvard. And he talks about that disruptions cannot happen from within. So you need to create flexible structures by which you can create the disruptions. And I think a lot of things that we as companies have done in the last 30 years will have to change. Like most of the networks, including Dentsu Asia's network, has acquired services companies. But we'll have to learn how to acquire technology companies. We'll have to get talent who are technically savvy to lead agencies, right? Most of the agencies today are led by people like me, who in quotation marks are sales guys. But we'll have to get technocrats on board, and they'll have to become leaders in the agency world, because that's what the future is going to be. So there's one interesting line that I got from Adage, which talks about how a planner will have to be in the future. And I found it very interesting. So I just put it out here. But I think building that service capabilities and technology capabilities is going to be the most important thing the agency networks can do for themselves, because that's where the future is going to be. Now, I think basically I can talk about a playbook, but my thinking is that I think it's very important for us to look at how do we build outcome-based plans. It's very important that we take the business objective as the main goal and then work backwards and see how we can actually sort of use marketing and ad tech to sort of accomplish those business objectives. A lot of times I've seen that, companies have, it's almost become like, sometimes I've seen that it's a new form of Facebook Live, like where people say, why do you want a like? We say, no, my competition has it. Oh, somebody told me it's something very important in my marketing plan. And the thing is, if we don't actually take our goals and make them business oriented, then utilizing, so like, somebody told me he wants a CDP or a DMP, and I said, why? And the same answer, right? My competition has it. Somebody told me it's the right thing to do. Cookies are going to go away. I need it. Actually, cookies is a good answer, but the fact of the matter is that it's very important to know the business objective before you think of an ad tech or a MarTech that you want to implement. So I'm going to cover a couple of examples. So this slide, my belief is that they say that when I wear the marketing hat, I'm very excited. But when I wear the consumer hat, I'm scared as hell, because the amount of data that is being collected to make messages personalized for us, touching our lives at different areas of our consumer cycle, understanding how profitable we are and treating us differently. All this is now possible, but it is going to, in a way, invade privacy at some points of time for sure. But I think, my belief is that it's better that you know something about me and make your messages more relevant to me, your products more relevant to me, than not knowing those things and give me junk all the time. So I have this view. So this is one thing that I read about Zara. I don't know how far it's true, but it was crazy. Zara would actually use big data to estimate the average weight of residents in each store, and based on that decide what kind of size of garments that need to be sent to them. So which was in a way quite scary. Couple of more slides I want to cover is that I think this word is going to be the word called phygital, right? Because I think we are not going to go back to the same way of going to the office every day, working in the office, going to stores in the same manner. There is going to be a lot of customization for us. So there is going to be a combination of digital and physical, whether it's going to be bots, whether it's going to be robots, whether it's going to be augmented reality, whether it's going to be virtual. I've had some of the luxury brands asking me to sort of go through a video presentation, as well as somebody who will be a video salesperson who's going to take me through what I can buy and what kind of discounts I can get. And I thought that that's what the future of luxury is going to be. Because if you know who the person is, as we said, right, if 20% of the people give you, 20% of your customers give you 200% of your profits, just knowing in advance who that person is, before you do that call with them, rather than them walking in the store and you don't know anything about them. In fact, I was talking to a friend of mine, he owns a lot of stores, and he should train these personal shoppers to sort of service the high-end customers. So he says 20 years back, it was easy. A person who would wear a suit and a tie would walk in, he's the personal shopper would actually address. And now what has happened is the person who wears a black t-shirt and a fatawa jeans could be the richest guy, and he's going to buy lakhs worth of goods. So they don't know how to train the personal shoppers to identify that how do you help the right guy. So now the thing is, in digital world, if a lot of these things are virtual, then you're going to fix a video call with that person who you know who that person is. If you're selling to a Mukesh Ambani or you're selling to somebody else, you would know beforehand. So imagine how customized your offering you could make for that person, because this is what the world is going to be. So companies who actually are able to combine physical and digital extremely well are the ones who are going to win. Last thing, I think, as we talked about, I think some problems are just too big for one company to solve. There are going to be different solutions going to come together to solve it, whether they are in, analysis, whether it's in integration, whether it's in MarTech management. But there are going to be hundreds of companies, and there are actually 7,000 MarTech companies in the world. So imagine the opportunity of having a universal API and connecting all these companies. But I think the only thing I would like to say is that everybody must have a very clearly outcome-based strategy. That's going to be the most important part of it. Second last slide I'm going to cover is basically, I think it's important to have business goals, technology goals, customer goals, and some of the other goals. And then see, this is what we want to achieve as a business and how we can align technologies, capabilities, people towards that in the long run. So I think basically one of the problems I want to lay out here for everybody, which I think is one of the biggest problems that I face in the SaaS world, advertising world, marketing world, and the cloud world, is connecting advertising to technology. So, connecting advertising to CRM and marketing technology and vice versa. So let me give you one example, right? Somebody sees an ad for a Pizza Hut or Domino's Pizza on advertising for the last 5 days. Then he downloads a Swiggy app. The chances are that all that data collected over 5 days doesn't get transferred to that person who, when the offer of Swiggy right now is, let's say, Chappan Bhog or Shiv Sagar, that's what he's going to get. He's not going to get that pizza offer, while actually Swiggy wants that first activation to happen. Secondly, a lot of data that is being collected in the CRM world, whereas the amount of money you withdraw from an ATM or what is a call center, talk to that person, etc., doesn't get transferred. The best customers' data doesn't get transferred to advertising world to actually acquire more customers who per se can give you the most amount of profits. So I think this is a problem which is the holy grail of the problem we face as an industry. And I think one company, however big the company is, can't solve it. It is going to require tons of companies coming together. So Dentsu has a fund called DTAP, which is a $5 million fund. We also have a global fund to fund companies who are solving a part of this problem. So anybody in who's listening to this presentation wants to solve this problem, a part of it, we are willing to fund you. So that completes my thoughts on this thing, and lovely to get an opportunity to speak here. Thanks for spending the time with me.
Wow. Thank you, Vivek. That was super short and really well rendered. Can I request you to stop sharing your screen?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I have to say that, I mean, it's very rare to see a complex session like this get de-jargonized so well. And I think you did a fabulous job of de-jargonizing this for us. And I'm sure that that has helped the audience really understand, the importance of this platform and the need to embrace it. Like you rightly said, 20% of customers contribute to 200% of profits. So there's no not focusing on it. I love the line outcome-based planning and outcome-based strategy. That's exactly what a technology stack like this would enable. And last but not the least, like you said, leverage cloud capability, make the elephant move. Anyways, they say, remember, an elephant delivers a baby once in 2 years, but when it delivers, everyone knows it. It's one of those. So thank you so much, Vivek. Totally loved the session. And with that, we'd like you to stay back. So towards the end, we can also get you to answer some questions from the audience. In the meantime, I'm going to bring in our next speaker. So next we have with us is Kamalika Perez, who's the director of Google Cloud. She's going to help us demystify. She's going to help us really demystify the understanding of cloud for marketing as a transformational tool for businesses. She's a seasoned business leader and technologist. She comes with 20 plus years of experience in consulting, business, sales, and technology transformation. Kamalika, I hope your camera is on. And interestingly, Kamalika, I must say, has been a very passionate advocate for diversity, equity, and inclusion during her career, participating in numerous forums and interest groups on women in technology. And I think that's fabulous because given the kind of field she represents and becomes a role model for a lot of women to be a part of this transformational journey, which is just catapulting in today's time. When she's not talking cloud technology, she is a traveler, a history enthusiast, and a trained singer. So Kamalika today is going to share with us how cloud for marketing is going to enable customer lifecycle to deliver a frictionless customer experience, and how data and technology can be used to enable effective decision making. So Kamalika, over to you, and let's hear more from you.
Great. Thank you very much for that fantastic introduction, Monica. That was really
Pleasure.
awesome. And Vivek, again, thanks for a great session. Absolutely loved your insights, especially the ones you brought out in the poll, which I think was an eye-opener for all of us. So thanks for that. So I'm going to jump right into my session with starting off maybe with a little bit of a personal perspective. So this goes way back to, when we were starting out our careers, fresh from business school. And my husband, he was a marketing trainee with Hindustan Lever, and I was in technology and consulting, with PwC. And a lot of our conversations used to actually, sort of move around how we were in very different professions, how the problems, the ways that we looked at it, and the data sets were so very different, right? But fast forward 20 years, and we are actually at a juncture where marketing, technology, solutions, services, consulting, call it what you will, has come together to create this exciting field of MarTech, right? And I'm told that we are actually on the cusp of the next revolution in MarTech, which is actually going to bring all of this together even in a more tight and a more powerful way to deliver a fantastic customer experience. So very, very topical discussion and an interesting session for the times that we are in, right? In my session, I'm going to touch upon three main areas, right? The first one is going to be centered around the customer, because that's where a lot of the discussions around MarTech starts. The second one is going to be around the state of technology. And the third one is going to be what we see as the way forward, or the evolution, or the next step of where all of this conversation is going to go, right? So starting off first with the whole area of customer experience and how that pans out, right? And we've all heard about this. We've heard about the experience economy. We've heard about how organizations like an Uber or Airbnb have grown by making the experience the currency rather than the product or the service, right? So everybody agrees that the experience has to be supreme, right? But what exactly lies under the covers? And I wanted to quote to you a study that was done by Bain and Company a few years back in mapping what they called the customer experience gap, right? Now, they actually went and asked a bunch of CEOs and CXOs of leading organizations, did they think that the customer experience that they had crafted was a superior and an industry-leading one, right? And they asked the same question to the customers of these organizations. Again, did they think that the experience provided by the company was a superior one, right? The data actually that came out was very interesting and startling too, in a way, right? About 80% of the CEOs believed that they had actually given a superior experience to their customers, right? As against that 80%, only 8% of customers actually agreed that the experience was a superlative one, right? 80% to 8%, perception versus reality, right? And this is what Bain actually called the customer experience delivery gap. That in spite of all of the investments, all of the solutions, all of the initiatives that we put into perfecting the customer experience, this gap exists, right? And it's real. I mean, to me, this gap, is a manifestation of every time I call a call center, for example, right? And all of us have had that experience. We call a call center, there are endless options, we have to go through multiple buttons, multiple options, all of that before we actually found what we're looking for. And I always think that, there is somebody obviously who has put a lot of care and thought into designing this, because they want to provide the customer with the right options or what they think are the right options. Whereas for the customer, it's usually a source of frustration and delay till they actually get to where they want to get and speak to a live person, right? It's a great example of the experience gap as it operates, in practice. What is the reason for this? What is the reason that this experience gap exists, and what is the one could say the root cause for this experience gap? And if I had to distill it down to one word, that one word would be data, right? Yes, you heard me right. It's data, but the problem is not that there's too little of it. The problem is that there is too much of it, right? The customer, when he interacts with the organization, leaves a trail of data across every channel. It could be a buying transaction, it could be a query on a call center, it could be comments left on a partner website or a social media website. All of these in the customer's mind forms the one conversation that he's having with your organization, right? They're all parts of the same conversation. For the organization, however, to be able to bring this conversation together across multiple data sources, multiple storage sets where this data has been lovingly kept, and actually form an idea of what is the conversation with this customer, and therefore what does the organization need to do next to engage him or her, is a Herculean task. And that's the reason why there is a surfeit of data which is growing exponentially with all organizations. There isn't that binding together of the data into an actionable insight that can actually tell you what it is that you need to do with your customer next. And this, by and large, is the reason from which this huge experience gap springs. So now we've taken a look at how the situation is on the customer side. Let's move at the technology side. And here, some of the stuff that Vivek also talked about is very, very topical in the discussion, right? Again, technology for this exists and has existed for many, many years, right? Technology has evolved from simpler tools in MarTech to a proliferation of organizations, 7,000 as you saw. In fact, this is a very favorite slide of mine, which is made by Scott Brinker, who is known as the godfather of MarTech. And he actually shows this every year, showing how the ecosystem is proliferating. And it has grown to these huge numbers that we see today, about 7,000 organizations that are involved in building solutions, building platforms, building exchanges, what have you, all of that. It makes it a very rich and innovative ecosystem. So yes, there is a lot of technology out there, right? However, if you actually ask the MarTech professionals what is really standing as barriers, we come up with very interesting insights. So there was again a survey that was done by Ascend2, which actually really went into the depth of this question with a whole bunch of MarTech professionals. And the question again was asked, what is really standing as the key barrier in MarTech evolution or MarTech adoption? And the biggest answer that came across was integration of the underlying platforms, integration of the technology that we use, right? If you look at the numbers behind this, it's again very, very telling. An average organization can buy many, many marketing subscriptions, right? So on an average, a large organization may subscribe to, let's say, 30 to 40 different products, right? All for different parts of the MarTech value chain. However, the actual usage happens on 6 to 7 large platforms, which integrates some part of the operation of the MarTech value chain to be able to give that value to the MarTech professional. And this is again very telling that the integration of these pieces of solution that everybody buys is actually one of the key things that stops us from bringing the data together and bridging the experience gap that you talked about in the first part of the presentation. So what then is sort of the way forward, right? And how do we actually solve this situation? We have the customer experience gap, we have the integration gap as far as technology is concerned. What could then be the way forward? And here again, I'm actually going to touch upon three different aspects of the question. The first one is actually the platform, right? Having a platform where a lot of these solutions are built, which all plug into a common framework, a common foundation, and a common tool set, is actually going to be a very, very key part of the development of this ecosystem. And we've talked before about how the public cloud platforms are growing and maturing in capability. And what they essentially do is build this open ecosystem where the innovation can take place. Again, the idea is not to say, we need to build one large application that takes care of everything, exactly as Vivek mentioned in his address as well. It is really to have an ecosystem that can foster innovation, that can bring ideas, that can get a lot more people in, but in a way that's consistent, that allows for the interoperability of ideas and solutions. The platform actually provides that framework. In fact, one of the examples that I wanted to cite from our experience in Google was the work that we did with Panasonic. And Panasonic, again, had multiple campaign management platforms that they were running within their organization without a clear view of how much was actually being spent and how much was actually being, what was actually the impact of all of these campaigns, right? And again, the solution was not to replace all of this with one large campaign management system, but to bring it together on a platform. In this case, it was Google Analytics, to actually derive the insights from it and to be able to come up with some actionable ideas at the end of the day, right? So this is one example of how the platform itself can affect change rather than the individual application or the technology, right? The first piece is the platform. The next, hello, sorry, I just got a comment saying the voice is not clear. Am I audible?
Yes, Kamalika, we can hear you
All right.
loud and clear.
I
Yeah.
just saw the comment, so I thought I'll respond to it. So if we have the platform is in place, what is the next piece, right? And the next piece really is the data that we talked about, earlier as well. Data proliferation, yes, but the ability to tie it together and derive insights. So, in the past, organizations have taken very, very large data transformation programs on, right? We have organizations that have implemented, data warehouses over 2 or 3 years, huge volumes of data that had to be brought together, that had to be transformed, massive, massive exercise, right? With the world of cloud, though, those economics change completely. You now have access to analytics ability on tap, as it were, which can let you do all of the stuff that advanced data warehouses of the past did, right? However, to bring that in, to provide that very flexible, scalable analytics structure, and then to be able to break down the silos and organizational boundaries within your own organization, right? So you have a single view of the customer. That is really going to be the place where this conversation shifts, right? So instead of having a multiplicity of applications, to have something that has an overarching data layer that is able to tie it together and derive insight. And that is really where cloud for marketing also comes in. Again, the example that I wanted to cite here was the work that we did with Domino's. Domino's, again, coming from the same perspective of having a unified view of their customer with data that was resident in multiple systems. And here again, it was the Google platforms, BigQuery, Analytics, marketing platform that actually worked to bring these insights together to be able to tell Domino what is the action that they need to take for an individual customer. The last one after data and platform, and this is what I think is the most interesting trend in MarTech, and this is actually what I call, and this is my term entirely, is what I call the self-service technology, or the place where we think that MarTech is going to move next. If you really look at the nature of technology, the way that it's developing, a lot of it is actually going to be about putting the tools directly in the hands of the MarTech professional, right? In Google, for example, we have something called AutoML. Now, AutoML actually gives a MarTech professional the ability to build an ML model without necessarily having to have an army of data scientists sitting on the side, right? It puts those foundational building blocks in the hand of the professional itself. Great example of this is actually our deployment of AutoML with Disney, where they were actually able to build ML models. So for example, if you were building a Disney park, you could type in the name of a Disney character on Google search and you'd be told what the shows were, what the rides were, what the merchandise was, where it all was, all of that coming together as an experience for the person who was visiting the park. So this is an example of AutoML, right? On the heels of this, we also have the emergence of what we call the no-code environments. So just an example, as a marketer today, you can actually design your entire campaign and the entire management system of it out of simple tools like Google Forms, Gmail, and AppSheets. It's possible to build your own bespoke applications without necessarily needing to call in a solution vendor, right? And I think this is a very, very exciting space to watch in MarTech, because the proliferation of these no-code environments will mean that the innovation and the ideas will come even more, and from within the organization to actually put some of these applications on the platform and leverage the data from them, right? So that sort of brings me to the end of what I had to say. I just wanted to make one final point before closing the session. I think in all of this talk about technology and marketing, what is most important at the end of the day is the human element, right? And how, as Scott Brinker himself has said, technology always moves ahead of the organization, right? So all this technology is great, but the organizations change and they change slower, right? So it takes some time to catch up to the state of the technology that is on offer. For example, we talk about skills like system integration, and we talk of skills like database management. The new skill that we will all need will be experience integrators, people who are able to look at the customer lifecycle and integrate the experience across various touch points. So some of those things, I think, will also become fundamental when we talk about the next generation of evolution of MarTech. So that brings me to the end of what I had to say, Monica. I'm going to hand over back to you. Thank you very much. And for any questions, I'm happy to take it after the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamalika. I think that was absolutely insightful. And I couldn't agree more with you in terms of how currently a frictionless experience is so lacking. And there is a dire need to bind data into actionable insights through the MarTech value chain and plug it into a common framework, which is agile. And you really managed to articulate that very effectively. And I do like the part about it's time to actually start thinking experience integrators in terms of a skill set, and which is why this evolution is so very important. I'm sure this session has been extremely useful. We've actually seen a lot of questions, and people are getting probably geared to make that elephant move, like Vivek said. Do stay back with us, and we'll come back to you with more questions. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you. So as we move to the panel discussion, it's a pleasure and a privilege to have panelists today who are experts and practitioners from the industry to share use cases and learnings related to cloud for marketing. A warm welcome to all of you. It would be great if you could have your cameras on as I introduce each one of you to our audience. Let me start with Achint Sethia, who's the VP Marketing at Myntra. He has 15 years plus of experience and has worked with diverse organizations like Microsoft, McKinsey, and Viacom. He claims to be a space enthusiast and spends time watching or reading about the unexplored territories, decoding our existence, role, and meaning. Wow, that sounds so profound. He loves spending time with his daughters and read to them. So welcome, Achint. It's lovely to have you today.
Thank you, Monica.
Next, we have Rajesh Shivani, who's the Customer Engineering Manager at Google Cloud. He has over 2 decades of experience in the area of enterprise, information architecture, data management, advanced analytics, and the list goes on. He and his team work relentlessly with organizations on their digital transformation journeys to drive growth and efficiencies. In his earlier avatar, he was with Teradata and IBM, handling several leadership assignments in the areas of technology and data science. There is more to him. He's a tennis lover, and he's eagerly waiting for things to open up to get back. So welcome, Rajesh.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Monica. Looking forward to the conversation.
Absolutely. Next up is Deepak Oram, who heads MarTech and automation at HDFC Bank. I think he can talk MarTech in his sleep by now. Deepak has been the key force behind visible digital transformation at HDFC Bank. He specializes in digital strategy, marketing technology, and digital customer experience management. He's super passionate and invested in the space, and hence most suited for today's session. But what you probably don't know about him is that he regularly gets into trouble over noise because of his home entertainment system, which is always very loud. And conversely, he's also an avid trekker, enjoys nature to a point where he likes to get back home all muddy. So there's really a child alive in him, I must say. Wow, welcome, Deepak.
Hi, Monica. Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So now it's time to introduce you to our session chair, Karthik Jain, who's the Executive Director Digital, DBS Bank. He comes with phenomenal experience and has worked in diverse categories such as banking, consulting, and FMCG. I've known Karthik for a while, and he has this amazing ability to put you at ease instantly. He's a great listener and is going to surely soak all the inputs panelists have to offer. On the personal front, he's an outdoor person, a nature lover, loves wildlife, trekking, running. It's his way to relax, reflect, rejuvenate, and probably develop the happy muscle which Vivek spoke about to us. So glad to have you on board, Karthik, and it's over to you and the panelists to take it forward from here.
Thank you very much, Monica. And probably you'll see me and Deepak in the next maybe nature trek around Mumbai.
Absolutely.
And fantastic insights, I must say, from Vivek, very old friend of mine, and of course, Kamalika, really, really insightful. And may I extend a very warm welcome to all our viewers, and dare I say a very safe welcome. Hope all of you are safe and well at home. And of course, a warm welcome to our expert panelists to this session on cloud for marketing. When I hear what Vivek and Kamalika spoke about, so clearly, hyper personalization and seamless messaging across channels is the holy grail for all marketers, and for me as well. And for that, you need the ability to assimilate, analyze, and act upon large amounts of data, right? And Kamalika, I think, underlined that as well very clearly. And that's where cloud comes in, right? To be able to manage unstructured data, very reduced cost of storage, and obviously very fast compute. And today's objective for our panel discussion is to understand better from practitioners who are on the panel and who've handled this at scale, and learn from them how we can change the game for marketers who are on this call right now. With that, let me just dive into the discussion and start posing my questions to the panelists. I'll start with Achint. Achint, as an e-com player with millions of customers, and you have transactions across multiple SKUs, how have you, and maybe you can talk about how cloud has helped you there, how have you built a common customer view for your customers, right? And with that, how have you used that big data to drive your customer engagement? So over to you, Achint.
Sure. Thank you, Karthik. And thanks, first of all, for inviting me to the panel. It's a pleasure to hear everybody's point of view and thoughts and learn from this session. I'll start with something which happened with me almost a couple of years back. This was, I think, June of 2018. I was not at Myntra then. This was my previous role. And, this was around one of these weekend nights at, I don't know the exact time, must be around 10-ish or so in the night. I was browsing through my phone, almost half asleep. And then I see this ping from Myntra. I was an avid buyer from Myntra as a customer. And but I hadn't bought something for some time, quite a few weeks, I would say. I believe there was some sale going on of Myntra. And now I know all of these things. But at that time, it was like, okay, something else is also happening. The message read as follows, right? It said, we hate to have you snooze. Here is your discount coupon to let you choose. Right? So that instant actually just woke me up. First of all, how do they know that I'm sleeping? Actually, they didn't know, right? It's just 10 p.m. in the night. Everybody must be, waiting to go to snooze or something. But, this whole fact of figuring out that I'm actually being dormant for the last many weeks, and there's an opportunity, given that there's a sale event, and there are, of course, a lot of coupons and, discount vouchers there. I actually ended up wishlisting something, and I think I bought a couple of things, including a watch I had been looking for quite some time. And this example stuck with me, even when I was considering joining Myntra, that there is something interesting, when you have the understanding of the customer and also the context, right? And I'll talk a little bit about that as we move forward. There is magic you can create in terms of communication while talking to a human, and that human piece is very important. You're not talking to a machine, and just because you have a lot of data power and, big data stack. So this is something which, I have learned even more in the last couple of years at Myntra on how do we take this journey forward, not just on the app, but also off the app, and where cloud comes into picture. So now coming back to your question, Karthik, 3 areas where cloud really helps us at a very structural level. The first is, of course, customer segmentation. Second is, mapping out detailed and very nuanced customer journeys on the app and off the app. And third is, of course, personalized messaging and targeting. And I think the messaging piece is as important as deciding who to target. So let me just spend some time on each of these 3. Starting with the segmentation piece. We segment customers on a variety of outcome metrics, right? So the standard ones that everybody is aware of is there is LTV, lifetime value, there is customer quality. For us, there is also a metric on likelihood of returning on the platform as a key metric on driving retention and, reducing churn. But, there is also a bunch of qualitative metrics. What we learn from our market research is what we learn from their behavioral patterns on the app, as well as what do they consume off the app typically, right? So for example, the kind of brands that they like, premium brands, mass premium brands, or luxury brands, or, very massy brands, the kind of styles that they normally like the times of the year that they buy, the buying occasions, and the pricing elasticity, right? So there is a psychographic segmentation, and there is a very, very hard, data-led, outcome-led segmentation. Cloud helps us bring this together, and form a consolidated view of the customer, which is where it helps us drive a lot of our campaigns very effectively. As an example, right, why this is important. So going back to Vivek's point of, top 20 customers contributing to 200% of the profits. When I look at my top segment at Myntra, which we call as our best loyalists, they visit Myntra 3x more often. They order 4x more often, and they have 10x higher annual revenue compared to the average of the platform, not just the bottommost customers, right? So this is the quality and the distinctiveness of this pool. And this is a fairly large pool of customers. It's not a very small pool. Now, depending on my scale of the campaign, let's say it's a sale event. It's a smaller sale event, not a big sale event. The objective is not to acquire a lot of new customers, but to make sure you meet the visits, the traffic, and the revenue of the platform. I can very smartly skew most of my marketing monies to this cohort. It is still less than 10% of my customer base, but I can avoid a lot of spray and pray, which may happen, and also personalize a lot of messaging basis, their moments of purchase and so on and so forth. So this single view of customer and the flexibility of managing the campaigns at scale and with enough flex, is what cloud helps us enable. Now, in a large sale campaign or a large brand campaign, I have to reach out to many more customers. But how do I secure this pool very clearly in terms of a frequency of how many times I show my ads to them off the app and how many times I show things to them in the app? That's again a single view that cloud helps us establish. The second point is around the customer journeys that I spoke about. See, here again, journeys are both off the app and on the app. Off the app journeys are important, as everybody knows, for remarketing efforts. In context of e-commerce, to help you appreciate that better, at any point in time for any campaign, we have anywhere between 10 to 50 different kinds of creatives. Of course, the number of creatives can be in hundreds, but kinds of creatives in terms of one can be a video, one can be a static, one could be a GIF, each of them giving different messages. Video could be, for example, for establishing the essence of what is an offer. The static could be very clearly middle or the bottom of the funnel, driving clicks. You want to ensure that neither of the customer cohorts gets missed out in seeing this variety, because they have to see the full funnel of creatives to be able to take the action. And you also need to ensure that a particular cohort is not seeing any one creative too much, right? So no overexposure over there. Again, you need a single customer view. That's why we work with a lot of our partner stacks to ensure that this balance is maintained across the platform marketing efforts. This is where cloud comes into picture again for us. And the last point is on the app, which is what I call as where cloud helps us is on moments marketing. I think it's a popular term these days, but one of the examples that I shared in the beginning was moments marketing. But the idea there is basis real-time events, right? Whether it is, someone logging into the app for the first time, the visit rates of these people, of our customer, wish listing happening, the purchases happening, even cart abandonment. Someone has just abandoned the cart after spending a lot of time, the kind of content they are watching, a lot of automated triggers and notifications can be generated. All of this data, these real-time events are being generated at scale, and with the right with a minimal time lag, because we have the big data stack as well as cloud enabling us for that, from both processing as well as from management standpoint. So this is in a gist, from a customer segmentation, building customer journeys, and targeting, both from personalized messages and moments marketing, where for us cloud becomes a very integral part of our on-app and off-app marketing efforts.
So fantastic. So thank you for that great overview, Achint. So on that, from our e-com, e-tail perspective, let me move to a banking perspective and the question of cloud, and we'll take the question up. Before that, Monica, can we have the Deepak's poll question?
Sure. So we have a very interesting, yes.
If you're able to take your customer marketing data or process or platform to the cloud in the manner you desire, whilst keeping data privacy and security intact in the next quarter, how much revenue lift do you foresee? So how much revenue lift do you expect that if you make a shift to cloud, what is the impact on your business?
So there are close ties happening as of now, Deepak. You may want to, once I share the results, react to that. And yeah. I'm going to quickly close the poll and share the results. Here you go.
Wow. So
great.
So people are optimistic.
Before you react to that, let me also pose a question to you, and then you can take both together. Right, so keep the poll on for a while.
Just for the audience, the lead is 10 to 25%, followed by less than 10%. No, followed by about 25%, and then less than 10%.
Correct. So superb. So that's a question for you, Deepak. Right, as a bank, right, security of data is paramount to you. But like you said, we need the cloud for going the next level of scale. So what are the trade-offs between flexibility of the cloud versus security having an on-premise deployment? Right? What are the trade-offs, and how does a bank like HDFC Bank manage to work around this challenge and to be able to deliver that consistent, omni-channel personalized approach to customers like Achint mentioned? So over to you on the response to the poll, as well as my question on managing on-prem versus on-cloud.
I think I'm not surprised that people are very, very optimistic on the value that cloud can generate for them. And being a banker and working in banking, I know the constraints for certain industries are more than others, and a lot of people are very optimistic. If you can imagine yourself on the cloud and have the flexibility, you will be able to do a better job as a marketer beyond anything else, right? And the customer will benefit. That's what most people imagine themselves to be able to deliver, and that's a great sentiment, and I think it's a very positive one. I'm very happy to see that, right? Because it's largely driven through a focus on customer experience, right, and agility. If I had to answer that question myself, I would squarely put it beyond 25%, even a 50 to 100%, because the way the customer behavior is changing today, and people are going digital. We need to ensure we give the same experience to the customer digitally that we probably can give it to you in a branch, or maybe on the phone, right? So we should be able to discern and understand you and give you the same sales experience maybe a person or a human being can give you. Obviously, that means that you have to churn a lot of data and to really understand your customers, right? So I'm glad that people are very, very positive, and that's something that we all as marketers need to address in the very, very near future. Coming back to your other question, Karthik, so the flexibility versus the safety of doing something on-prem. So I think the days of cloud not being in India are behind us, right? Now, every cloud platform that we can think of today is slowly making a move towards India and data localization. So a lot of issues that we used to have maybe 2, 3, 4 years back, I think are slowly disappearing, right? So if that big issue has now disappeared, it is now squarely in the hands of the marketer to be able to evangelize and get cloud adoption going in their own organizations. Data privacy and data security, I think, in my assessment, I think our information security professionals are also going very quickly up the curve. And so they do understand things like anonymization, right? They do understand the data churning and data science does not necessarily look at the demographics or the PI information of a customer. We're looking at purely anonymized attributes, which are behavior rather than identifiable information, right? So if I had to give you a very quick verdict, I think the time where we used to get held back by information security or data privacy constraints because of localizations are behind us. Not squarely in the hands of people who are attending this sort of a forum to take that advantage and go ahead and build and achieve their customer experience dreams. So I think that fine balance you can strike if you want to, but now the power is in your hands. So if you can go ahead and try and achieve, right now is the time.
One quick question to you, Deepak. You have a very interesting role, right? You're looking at MarTech and automation within HDFC Bank. What are the challenges that you faced in this role, and and how have you managed to align stakeholders to your point of view?
So challenges in this whole, so marketing is going more and more technical, right? There used to be a time when it was more creative driven, more communication driven. Now HDFC Bank has a big data science team as part of marketing. It's not even outside in a business intelligence unit anymore, right? So these are all my stakeholders, right? I have to now service these guys. I have to now ensure they have the, like Kamalika said, have the plumbing in place so they can work better, right? Once the plumbing is in place, if you can figure out what relevant communication you want to send to a customer, then the digital marketing folks can take over and then execute quickly, right? So if that is what I need to enable, it's purely a job of empathy, right? I think people don't empathize enough with all stakeholders. There's IT, there's information security, there's of course the marketing folks, and marketing folks have now expanded into data science. They've gone into hyper personalization. They've gone into lookalike modeling. Whole bunch of stuff is now in the hands of the marketers, right? So while there is a challenge in terms of getting people to understand what it is that in the end the organization wants to achieve, but one secret that I found is that if even an IT professional or information security professional is actually at the end of the customer, he's also a consumer. They do go to e-commerce, right? They do go to Myntra, for example, and they see the hyper personalization that happens over there, right? So it's for me to go and face this challenge by talking to them about these great things that they experience as consumers, right? And the marketing folks don't need convincing. But if all the stakeholders, I can tell them, boss, this is what I will do for HDFC Bank tomorrow. Are you with me? I think it's a resounding yes as a response. I don't see any challenge in getting that. So one challenge which most people assume is that sometimes IT or information security will become a bottleneck. Not the case anymore. Everyone is a customer. Everyone goes to a Myntra or to a hyper personalized space. They will appreciate. It's for us to have empathy and go to them and say, I will do this for us. And they respond very, very well.
That's a great insight for all the other marketers out there who want to convince and work with the technology teams closely. So on that note, let me move to Rajesh. Rajesh, for you, the goal seek for today's marketers, digital marketers, is to reach the right customer with the right product and the right offer and the right channel, the right time. The example that Achin gave so beautifully, right? But clearly, like Kamalika said, the key is how do you bring it all together, right? So what kind of platform framework or platform solution marketers need to invest in to make this a reality? And again, while Kamalika's answered it, your view on how Google can help the people out there.
Sure, Karthik. I've got a few examples as well I can share if we have more time. But the whole idea is to look at the customer journey that Achin put it so well, right from essentially looking at the discovery of the product to actually trial if trial is a part of the process, to actually purchase, and then post purchase, the whole experience around it and the support around it, right? So how do you look at the entire journey? And then look at early signals. So we look at this term called trend spotting. I know it's becoming a term as well, to look at trends very, very early and not necessarily wait for it to become a problem and then try to fix it. So are there any early signals that we get, whether it's from digital channels or offline channels, and make it part of your process? So we're working towards that, right? We're looking at, let's look at the whole process in entirety. Let's look at, how do you collect the right data? I know it's a bit a bit of a worry when we talk about collecting data, but of course it's in line with all the compliance, security, privacy that Deepak, so well put it, and not necessarily at the individual level, but more at an aggregated level to determine behaviors. So look at collection as a key point. And when I talk about collection, it's everything, right? It's the core transaction data. There used to be times, and I know Achin would probably know this better, where we used to do a lot of this market basket analysis to say if you buy A, then B, then you also buy C. It was all based on transaction data. Now those times have changed. We're trying to combine transaction data with interaction data, which is intent, meaning I'm not necessarily buying a product for you to start analyzing my behavior, but I'm showing intent. So how do you combine intent data with actual transactions? So that becomes a key pillar. Once we do that, then we start to look at, I've got collected, how do I make it relevant for consumption to my users? So whether it's the data scientists that Deepak spoke about, or to the brand owners, or to the end customers, right? How do you transform it in a way that becomes useful and relevant to you in your process? Second phase. Third is then you start to analyze. You build those recommendation models, you build those hyper personalization, you do propensity scoring, all that stuff, right? Make it easy to do. And Kamolika touched upon the concept of auto ML, right? So how do you analyze the data? Then you move to visualization and then activation. So we're saying, what can we do as Google to walk you through that entire journey of collection, transformation, analysis, visualization, activation, and last mile integration, right? Whether I want to get an SMS or an email or courier at home with a set of offers, all of that process. That's what we're working towards. The difference now that we're seeing, and we're trying to, and we are adding a lot more effort into that, is to make it as real time as possible. Achin spoke about the message that he got in the night, and that is becoming extremely critical, right? You don't want to wait for things to happen and then communicate later on. And how do you make it more real time? I'll give you an example, a slightly old example, but I still think it's relevant. About 3 to 4 years ago, we were talking to a very, at that time, a large telecom operator, doesn't exist anymore, unfortunately, because of the consolidation we've seen in the market. But, he gave a very good example to say that there's this whole problem of call drops, right? I mean, it still exists, but it used to be a lot worse about 4 or 5 years ago. And each time a call drops, they wanted to communicate back to the customer saying, we're sorry your call dropped. Here is some credits for you to use or some offer that you can leverage, right? It has two problems. If you do it the next day, you're actually reminding the subscriber of a bad experience that you had a call drop yesterday, and then, it's not going to work. But if you're able to do it then and there, while the call drop, immediately send an SMS saying, we're sorry it dropped, and we'll add some 10 rupees to your prepaid account. That creates a different experience altogether, right? How do you do that? How do you ensure that you're able to capture the data at real time, send the message back in a personalized way, which, people have spoken about, and close the loop then and there? And that's what we're trying to drive at Google, move to real time, move as much as possible. I'll finish off with another example that we work not in India, in Australia, but very relevant to India as well, because it's got to do with cricket, right? We all love cricket so much, right? Foxtel, they moved from a free model of watching test cricket to OTT, right? To customers actually coming and paying for the service. And they found it very difficult to begin with. That's where the whole analytics on the cloud came into picture. They built an initiative called Project Monty that would predict when the next wicket might fall, right? So imagine you're trying to create an event and say that, there's a wicket going to fall in the next 10 minutes, and people would log on and come and watch that because there's an event that's going to happen, right? So how can you use cloud technology, analytics to drive more engagement, move to real time, the whole process? And lastly, make it part of the core workflow and not as an independent thing that somebody is doing. So lots happening, a lot of action in this space right now.
So great. So one question I have for all the panelists, and anyone can take this. What's clearly coming out is that the need to invest in the right platform that can handle the data, manage the customer the insights and push that out. That really means a lot of rupees or dollars to invest. So what is the best way to convince your CFO or CEO that, look, this investment is going to give you the right ROI? Any learnings there? Any war stories that you guys can share?
So Karthik, essentially we are all marketeers and we talk about data-driven marketing, right? Now, where I think people are now evolving, what I believe in is data-driven ROI analysis. Look at the customer fingerprint, look at where the bottlenecks are purely through data. Here is my bottleneck. If I decrease this bottleneck, what is the revenue uplift, right? And CFOs always get mad. He's coming to me and telling me about this new technology the other bank has, so you also get it. That's something we should shy away from doing anymore. There's enough data in our hands. We talk about being data driven. I always go to the CFO with a data-driven approach, saying, if you do this, if you invest this, this is the positive ROI you will get. I think that approach people like, and it is also being true to ourselves, not going by trends, but by going through understanding of our customers and revenue opportunities.
So, Achit, one question to you: any investment that you made just failed? Like, so building on Deepak's question, maybe you convinced to put the money behind, and of course, Myntra might be well funded, but whatever, which failed, didn't work as the way you thought it would be.
Yeah, it's a good question. Actually, I'll add a perspective to that. I was about to say something on what Deepak was saying, and then I'll answer this also along with that. See, sometimes the ROI is very clear, and the case is very, very in your face, right? And that works well with the CFO and even the CEO from an investment decision standpoint. A lot of times it is not clear at all. And I think what is important there is to do a bunch of these experiments, have the A/B experimentation engine on to show to users by sending, for example, this personalized message, how can I improve my open rates? How can I improve my conversion rates down the funnel? And if I scaled up to the entire platform, what is the overall, revenue upside or whatever metric that you take, from an ROI conversion standpoint. So experimentation becomes very, very important. And how have you sort of prepared your platform to do these experimentations? Because there's also technology behind experimentation. I think that is the first investment someone should do before investing in, larger technologies. That is something which I would like to add, and that's an ongoing thing for even mature, technology organizations. Investment decisions failing, in context of what I have seen, Karthik, more than investment coming in and then not giving us the returns. What has happened is, multiple investments have come in and not got sequenced in the way ideally they should have been. So, for example, what happens is when you start in any setup, you want to build your own stacks, right, as much as possible, which are cost efficient, do things in-house, and a lot of data gets sit on them, and a lot of things are running from those stacks, and then you get a big player like a Google or a Microsoft or somebody to provide their intelligence, and there is a 1 year, 2 year, sometimes a longer period of time for transition. In that period of time, either there is duplication or there is not full utilization of one or the other stack. And that is where I think a lot of companies, in fact, even Myntra has gone through that journey where, making sure that the multiple stacks that you have invested behind, how do you make the best use of them? How do you make them talk to each other? And how soon can you migrate to the stack of choice? Because there are some hard calls that have been taken. Businesses are never going to shut shop for even a single day, right? I mean, but some things will break, something will go wrong, but someone has to take a hard call at the top and say, we are going to do this and let's see what the outcome is.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot for that. So that's useful advice for our viewers there. Before I get into a bit of Q&A, one quick question for Rajesh. Rajesh, you mentioned, I think you mentioned trend spotting, right? I got that correctly. Yes. Question for you. If we all meet again a year later, right, which important trend do you think we'll be having a panel discussion about? It's a Google question.
I probably caught me off guard there, but I think it probably would have a lot to do with the situation we are in, I'm thinking, right? I mean, we are all, working from home in a lockdown, and that trend has, it's impacted with the way people shop and consume services and products, right? And I know both Deepak and Achin can agree with me. The way customers are buying retail, maybe the volumes at Myntra have gone up significantly. So has probably the whole video KYC that HDFC is doing for opening new accounts on an instant basis, right? I think the trend would be around, how did the current event change the behavior, and did that do it for the best? Meaning, does it do it from a permanent or a long-lasting view, or was it just a blip because I know we will get out of this event sooner or later, right? So I think that could be the discussion. Were there any long-lasting permanent effects of where we are right now on consumer behavior?
Thanks for that. So, Monica, you have your next year's trend question to turn on the panel. So great.
Absolutely.
So 144. I'll switch to the Q&A if that's okay, Monica. I'm just going
yes, absolutely. Yes.
And we'll start with Vivek has had to drop out. So we'll go with the question for Kamalika. Santosh. Sure. So customers often leave multiple data footprints during the transactional process. So the conflict, which creates a misleading analysis. How to overcome or account for the self-conflicting consumer data? That's an interesting one. So how do you weave through the noise, basically?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, the answer really goes back to statistics, right? If we have a limited data set, then the conclusion that we can draw from it can very often be misleading, right? But if we have an enriched data set, which is enriched with data from various sources, as well as modeled on more advanced algorithms, and by that I do mean AI and ML, very often we are actually able to drive more insight from that data set, right? So again, this could be pertaining to a specific example which you have in your mind. It's a fair question. And I think a lot of the continued efforts of data scientists and data analysts, it's really to look at masses of data that appear to be unrelated in the beginning, but which have hidden connections and interrelationships that we can only see once we apply more advanced tooling on it, right? So all data, at some level can look disjointed, but it's really about deriving those insights from it with the modeling that you do, with the enrichment that you do, that will give you that insight. The insight is not so easily derived.
Thanks for that.
I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, I think it covers the fact. I think the more data you have, it is unstructured big data, but the key is how do you kind of bring that together and run the science through it and come to the insights. So let me move ahead. The first question, okay, this is a question by Shrishti, and I'll rephrase this. I'll call the question out, but I'll rephrase the question as well, right? How can performance marketing be used for building brand equity? Is building brand equity necessary in today's world where brand loyalty is very difficult to achieve? And I will kind of link this to a point that Vivek made, right? He said measure, 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 focus on outcomes. And I'll just quote a quote which I think is ascribed to Albert Einstein, and which really had impacted me early in my performance marketing days. Everything that can be counted does not necessarily count, and everything that counts cannot necessarily be counted. So that's the question between performance and brand, right? So open question to the panel. Who wants to take that question?
Yeah, I can respond to that. So the answer to the first question is yes, it can be used for building brand equity. In fact, any messaging that goes out for the customer, it doesn't matter whether it is performance or non-performance. It's all in the marketeer's mind, right? So they are seeing to a creative and a messaging, and they will respond to it the way it is looking to them. The question to ask is the objective of the brand, right? Is the brand meant to tell a story, which is more to build, move the various, memory structures, if I'm using a little bit of a marketing terminology here, in the consumer's mind to create recall value on a certain set of context, right? So for example, when it comes to fashion, fashion can be brought in occasion X, Y, Z, and so on and so forth. It can be brought out alive with certain set of styles. So there is a story that needs to be told. A comprehensive story can be told through a bunch of performing marketing efforts over a period of time, or it can be told in a very sharp, simple video, right? And I don't think, and performance marketing, by the way, is also video and non-video led. So it is about what helps you at the moment in time to drive salience, and what is the most cost efficient way of doing it, right? So this balance is what, at least how we look at this. There is a time, just to give an example again, when we came out of lockdown, in early May, what we realized is that there was a lack of or drop in salience across the board, right? No brands had been marketing, and consumers had also gone down significantly in their purchasing. So there was a need to talk to the consumer and remind them, there is a utility in buying fashion, and fashion also could be bought for various reasons, right? It could be bought for various fashion essentials. So people bought a lot of kids stuff. People bought a lot of, innerwear stuff, which they had not been able to buy for quite some time, offline or online. But the best way to do that, what we realized, was through performance marketing. There was no point in launching a, mega brand campaign and talking about this message. Get to the consumer to the point, this is what I have available at the right price, please go and buy it. And we saw a significant jump in our salience scores, right? Better than what we do actually brand campaigns, which are multi-crore campaigns. So again, the moment and the context was relevant there. In a normal scenario, of course, you would want to do both, right? Where performance works at the bottom of the funnel and, the brand campaign works at the top of the funnel. And you make sure that there's enough and more people coming across the funnel to get you the desired conversion that you need for the platform.
Fantastic. I think that I've come to the same point. The key thing is, where's the customer, the decision-making cycle, and that, in that sales funnel. A good segue, therefore, to the next question also for you, Achint. And I think Rajesh pointed that out as well, the trend spotting piece, looking at not just transaction, but also customer behavior. And the question from Santosh Mishra for you is, how do you use the big data to study customer experience and not just behavior? So it's a bit of a leap question, right? Yeah. So we end up looking at the behavior, right, to look at where they are in the funnel. But this is an interesting take to that.
No, it's a very, very good question, Santosh. Thanks for asking that. And when I was talking about the consumer journeys, this is what I meant exactly, right? See, again, to contextualize it for you, Myntra is a fashion platform. Fashion is a window shopping business. There's a lot more browsing that happens before the purchase happens. Unlike, another e-commerce destination where people know exactly what to buy, they go and buy and, get the transaction done. So for us, it's important to see where consumer has dropped in the journey, how much time they are spending on every product page, in every sort of SIS page, as we call it, the system pages, and whether that is leading to the right things being discovered by the consumer. So the whole UX discovery, which is part of the on-app consumer experience, is a very important part for us to continuously optimize, the user journeys as we move forward. Then because there is a platform, we also have the opportunity to ask the consumer on the post-sales experience, something which Rajesh had referred to. The moment the order is received with you, the delivery is done, there is an NPS survey which is rolled out to the consumer, and they can actually fill it up there and then. They can also fill up things like, who did you buy this for? Yourself, your family, anybody, and so on and so forth, which helps us also think how much time a consumer has spent in buying for who, and sort of use that in our, future interactions with the consumer. So it's absolutely important, and there are various ways of doing that on the platform.
Thanks a lot for that. Hey, Monica, do I have time for one more question? Quick time check.
Actually, not unless somebody can answer it like really fast. Maybe a one-line answer to it.
So I just one for Deepak. How do you use automation to reduce non-value-added services?
I'm not sure. If you can interpret the question for me, what does it mean?
How do you use automation to reduce non-value-added services? So basically, instead of how do you basically, when you target the customer, make sure you only are able to serve them what is important and not necessarily what won't add.
Okay. So if you are only trying to be relevant,
quick couple of lines.
If you're trying to be relevant to the customer, and that's the answer you're looking for, you have to invest in aggregating your data and having the best technology churn the data, and then power your targeting platforms with that. That's it.
Great. Superb. So Monica, I'll just summarize now with your permission. We'll wrap it up. So brilliant. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed that session, and some brilliant insights, fantastic insights from our panelists who've been there and done that. And Monica, you're there. Thanks so much for that lovely frame, the way you framed the entire problem statement. Vivek's not here, but the way I see it is basically it starts with the customer, right? What do you want to achieve at the customer level? You want to make sure that because the customer is on multiple devices, has different needs, behaviors, exhibits these behaviors, and has different and there's an opportunity for you when you compete with the competition. What do you want to achieve? And based on that, the key thing is, how do I ensure that my customer, as they go through different parts of their funnel or the decision-making cycle, as they go through different touch points that are either on your own channels or maybe on your paid channels, the MarTech ad tech point, how do you stitch together a journey or a story which drives not just your performance-based outcomes as well as strengthens your brand? And once you have that objective in mind, the answer lies in obviously the solutions which spoke about. That how do you bring that multiple data streams together into one platform? How do you layer the analytics that gives you the right insights? And how do you present that to the customer in the right appropriate relevant manner, in the right time, the right place, the right product, right? And clearly in all that, cloud plays a very critical role, because now you're talking of millions and millions of terabytes, or not millions, but maybe large amount of terabytes of data, and how do you at low cost and very fast compute, right? So managing large amounts of data, keeping your storage costs low, being able to process that data in real time, and then push out that sweet spot message to your customer at the right time and place, right? That's how I see it, and the insights are fantastic for all our viewers from how to make this happen. And that's all from my side. And we are 154. Monica, over to you.
Thank you, Karthik. I think you led this extremely well as session chair, and thanks for that wonderful recap. I was like literally trying to make a word cloud around some of the phrases which I kept hearing and noticing quite a bit, be it Leveraging efficiency of auto ML, hyper-targeting possibilities are infinite, using fingerprints, amalgamating multiple sources of data, and being agile and open to experiments are some of the key phrases I try to put together more like a little word cloud for our audience. And with that, I do want to say a big thank you, Karthik, for chairing the session, panelists for sharing such wonderful insights with us today, Kamalika and Vivek for really, de-jargonizing and demystifying cloud for marketing so very effectively for our audience. And as we bring the session to a close, we will be back soon with our Thursday series, which is a part of the Modern Marketing Confluence, an initiative by Dan and MMA. Last but not the least, here is a reminder of the various ways in which you can engage with MMA and stay in touch with us through our newsletters, social media handles, and various ongoing strategic programs. So stay tuned with us on our journey to modern marketing as we bring you more. Thank you and have a lovely day ahead.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
everybody.
Monica. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks to MMA, Dan, and Google for helping bring this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye. Have a good day.